Oh, hi, Ajay.
Good to see you. How are you?
Hi. How has the show been so far?
It's been exciting. I think last year compared to my visit, I feel like we have twice the people, twice the energy. So obviously, the topics that we've been discussing have been catching a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the keynote this morning, and it's a great overview of what has happened in the past. I don't know, 12 months, 18 months. From my own perspective, I've seen a lot of changes as well. In terms of expectations for AI and the excitement of agentic AI in the past, I don't know, 3 months or so. It's
It's
changing so
exploded.
fast,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Could you maybe give a quick overview of what you're seeing in the market through your interactions with customers? There's a lot of talk about ROI. I don't know, 6 months ago. There's a lot of excitement now about agentic AI. How are all these things sort of happening at the same time? Are they running in parallel, or are they, in conflict, or what's actually happening in the market, from your customers' views?
I think it's been interesting to see what has changed and what hasn't, right? So I think some of the foundational questions that customers have been struggling with remain the same, right? Which is how do I store my data efficiently? How do I access the vast amount of unstructured data that I have? How do I continue to invest in pace of innovation and kind of move fast over there, all while maintaining kind of the high standards of quality, governance, access control, and guardrails? I think that remains a foundational problem. I think AI has accelerated a lot of those. I think change has happened in three very specific ways, which has been very fascinating to watch, right? So, one is as people have been putting more AI and agent workflows into place, trust becomes a bigger problem. How do I trust what my models are telling me? Which in turn becomes a question of relevance on the data that I'm putting out there, right? Which is how do I know that my model is actually extracting the right signal from the vast amount of data that I'm going over there? So I think that's become a very big topic of discussion. I think the second interesting one has been flexibility, right? Which is models are changing so quickly. The model that was great yesterday is terrible tomorrow. We were just talking, for example, about Llama not being part of the conversation anymore, which was a very big topic, a year ago as to one of the
Yes.
models that was there. And so companies deciding how do I set up my infrastructure to be open and flexible such that I'm not constrained by model choice, but I'm able to use the latest and greatest alongside my data as we go over there. And the third big one, and this goes back to your call out about AI versus agents and others, is the shift from answers to action.
Yes.
Right. A lot of what we were seeing early on were people using AI to synthesize signals from the data that they have, find patterns, find recognition. A lot of people looking to now say, how do I turn that into deterministic action? How do I make that predictable and kind of make changes over there? And I think what we have been trying to do with Elastic is have technology investments in each of those areas to make better, like from our relevance engine to our inference service for model choice and agent builder and workflows to enable action over there. All of that ties together on making sort of this AI workflow a lot more positive and possible. Yeah.
So you're making it a lot easier for companies to jump into AI quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And, you asked the question about ROI earlier,
Yes.
and I think that becomes an interesting tie into what jumping in really quickly means. Somebody else, one of the customers I was speaking to asked me, how do I get started? And I was saying, you need to start small, but start quick, right? AI today has reached a point where you can very quickly get an early win with a focused workflow or a data set or everything that you have. And, typically you will see everything from customer support or engagement to developer workflows like we talked about during the keynote, or even financial analytics and other places where you're seeing kind of quick wins, right? Point it to a data source, find a workflow to optimize, push the change over there. I think the point of ROI now becomes is that how do you now translate that to actual end user benefit or end customer benefit over there? Because today, a lot of what people are experiencing are acceleration in getting work done, but that work has not yet translated to end user benefit. So I think a lot of our focus has been going back to that point about answers to action, is saying, how do you look at the entire workflow from problem definition to development to validation of those particular things, and seeing what part Elastic can play in each of those so that they can track the end-to-end part of it. There's also an entire angle about how do you make agent workflows more efficient,
Yes.
because you're using with AI data. But I'm sure we'll have more chances to talk about that.
Agents, agentic AI is a bigger step up than your first efforts into chatbots, let's say, right? Because you're talking about action, you're talking about reasoning.
Yep.
Things need to be a lot more precise.
Yes.
You can't hallucinate. you need to be close to kind of like RPA automation, but it's not one and zeros.
Yep.
You can actually vary, but you need to be right each
Yes.
time.
Yes.
So the question I have is, for companies that have kind of tried in the past few years, and then they found, oh my God, we don't have the data foundation. Our data is all over the place, or we haven't done our digital transformation properly in the past 5 years, let's say, right? We've done them in bits and pieces. We've fixed some loopholes, but we have a lot of technology debt that, we're far behind, let's say, right? Maybe not everything is on the cloud even.
Yep.
If someone comes along like this and asks you, like, where should we start? Can we jump straight to agentic AI without the foundation, or should we sort of do the foundation first before we start?
If I had an easy answer to that question, we would be very lucky, right? But I think that is the big question many companies are struggling with, right? I do feel like sometimes the conversations end up dominated by customers who are greenfield or who are dominating, in specific nuances, and they fill the news cycles with what is going on. But the real gains come when companies who are in various stages of transformation actually put there. I actually do think there are a lot of parallels with digital transformation and cloud native approaches as well, right? Every company is going to carry their legacy forward of how their data and operations goes over there. So I think for me, there are 3 questions that will come up, right? First is, does speed make a difference to your industry or not, right? Because there are many companies where speed is not the product. The product is stability or continuity or security or elsewhere. If speed is a differentiator, you do not have a choice but to get into it. You have to, right? Because agentic approaches have created a dimension of speed on velocity, which is unprecedented compared to anything else. It's the next step function forward. So I think that's sort of question number 1. I think then the question now becomes is, which surface can you experiment to focus your workflows? Because your gains on velocity come when your system becomes better, not if your individual pieces get better, right? And so this is why you'll see many people experimenting with agentic workflows with their engineering workflows first, because there are well predictable known ways that you can do it. Like if you have gone through a DevOps transformation, I can take my DevOps workflow and fix it. Or if I have an SRE system, I can go and fix it over there. And they use Elastic for doing the validation and observability at the end of it of what their workflow is built over there. So that becomes a second question about what workflow can I do? And in many cases, that will be greenfield. You can start with a net new application that you're building, especially if you're an innovation speed-based company. You will have a net new workflow to kind of go and do over there. And I think the third big question then becomes is that what does gains actually mean to you, right? That question is very, very tough for many customers to answer because many people mistake activity for gains, right? And we see this with coding tools where people are like, oh, I wrote 10,000 lines of code and that's great. I'm like, but what did you actually deliver for your customers? And that's a harder one. And the same thing applies when you look at even workflows like customer experience automation, right? You're saying my AI wrote 20,000 knowledge base articles for my support engineers, but if it doesn't change the rate at which your support engineers are able to close tickets for your customers, that's not impact. So I think as a CIO or a CXO, you have to really think about what those look like. So if you answer these 3 questions, does speed matter? The answer is yes. What workflows would I actually see that manifest? And then third, what does the gain look like? Then you're in a very strong position to then go and say, now that's a focused area where I can put AI to play, right? And that could be an agentic approach that you can fix the workflow. And then once you have that replicatable pattern, that goes into multiple places. And the answer today is you're more likely than not to say you must make a play, right? But the good news is, start small, start quick.
Right. And we've seen in the past few months, we've seen agents being very useful to programmers, to developers, to coders, right? And we've seen people deploying multiple agents to do their work for them and quite successfully. Well, there's also been some argument that that's because code is code. If it's right, it's right. If it doesn't run, it doesn't run, right? There's an error. Do you find that kind of deployment can be the kind of agentic AI deployment can be also extended to other parts of the business, like say your sales or your customer service or fulfillment, logistics?
And again, the industry is changing so fast that even this answer may be outdated in a few months, right? But based on where we are today, it's less a factor about what AI and model is good at and more a factor about where we as humans trust AI, right? So the nice thing about something like a software engineering workflow or any other places, it, like you said, it is deterministic, right? You can go and say, if you follow steps A, B, and C, there's a right and wrong that happens at the end of it. But even within software engineering, if you take the definition of what you should go build and the validation of did you build the thing right, like did you build the right thing and did you build the thing right, that still requires human in loops. So even that part of the workflow, you don't see many people outright delegating to agents modulo, some very localized scenarios. So I do think if you take that broader pattern, right, where you say deterministic capabilities delegate to agents, high judgment roles keep human in the loop, that same pattern absolutely does apply to other verticals as well. And I think the three places we are definitely seeing that. Marketing and content generation is one. You're seeing people go and say, hey, if I'm to run A/B campaigns on A, B, and C, you still require human judgment to say which segments to target, what kind of modalities to go after, what media formats to go after. But then the actual actions of the workflow, it says maybe like SEO is a great example, right? Like optimizing your workflow for what you're doing there, or LLMO as it is called today, right? To go and change that, or translation into various language formats over there, initial research and content generation, like a lot of those pieces where you would have probably put humans, you can shorten the loop as it goes over there. But then is the right thing, the editorial pass at the end still requires human in the loop. So I think that pattern is generally usable, right? Which is any place with a deterministic workflow, you switch over, but then validation goes over there. And this is where you see Elastic's investment towards things like workflows and agent builder is exactly that, right? You have a deterministic approach using queries, using workflows to go and say exactly what is going on. But you're able to then validate whether you have actually done the thing right? So I think that pattern definitely carries over to other industries too.
Could you talk a little bit about contextual engineering, which Elastic is big on? It will help to eliminate a lot of the distrust that comes from, the poor results or hallucinations that AI has been generating
Yes.
in the past, 12, 18 months, right?
It's a great question. So I think when going back to what we were talking about earlier, the places where you see agentic workflows or AI put to place is when the right model speaks to the right data. And I like to say it's hard for your agent to be smart if your data is dumb.
That's true.
Right? So if you just unleash a public model that is trained on public data against your contextual private data in your business, the chances of it doing the right thing are very poor, right? It's as much as if you brought in an external person and said, solve this problem in my business, they will only be able to do as well as their expertise goes over there. So now the question becomes, how do you make the agent or AI or LLM productive in your business context? So now you have to solve a few problems, right? How do you give secure access to the right bits of data that goes over there? How do you extract the right signal from the data that is going on that is relevant to the problem the AI is trying to solve? And then how do you surface it in a way that the agent actually understands and consumes it? That whole body is what you can think of as context engineering, right? To say, making sure that data is being accessed securely and efficiently. It is accessed with high relevance and it's done so in a way that the agent understands and contextualizes it. And where it ties in really well to what Elastic has always done, like search has always been our bread and butter. And I believe that search is the engine of this new workflow and AI that goes over there. So when you have data sitting in Elastic, be it operational data or security signals or e-commerce backend data, etc., you can now point an LLM at it, and our years of expertise at extracting the relevant signal makes your LLM more efficient, reduces the inefficiencies that you're seeing with hallucination, and then therefore makes it more effective on the end state that you're seeing over there.
So using your tools involved in context engineering, as well as all the ready templates and tool sets that you have, can a company kind of maybe in the middle of still refining its data foundation, let's say, can it jump straight into rolling out agents, in 6 months or?
I think the speed at which you can now move by having a predefined set is much, much faster, right? Because I think one of the places where I've seen companies struggle a lot with is the toil of putting the pieces together, right? You say, okay, what is my data store? How do I connect my model to my data store? How does my model actually work against the workflow that I'm looking for? How do I then look at the results of the workflow that you're going over there? when you use something like Elastic, that entire workflow is pre-packaged and given to you. Now, Elastic also, we are a big believer in being open and flexible. So you will see the ability for you to change things around, extend it, integrate with the ecosystem that goes over there. But the nice thing about the workflow we're giving you is it is very easy to then drop it into a specific data context and do that. So for example, taking it, we have had a customer, Hexaware, it's a big service provider, use Elastic's context store as a way to upskill the onboarding workflow for an incoming engineer. Right. So finding a way to contextualize all the information that they have internally and then creating a way for them to onboard a lot easier, they've been able to reduce their onboarding time in double-digit percentages as they go over there. Now that's a great example where you can say, hey, it's an internal workflow, but they're able to use it productivity for their business today. It did not require a massive rethinking of their data infrastructure. It did not require a massive rethinking about their digital strategy. You can use Elastic out of the box with these workflows to go
and it's never perfect. I mean, your data is never perfect. Then you keep adding on to it all the time.
Correct. And this is where, that's a great point, because this is where validation makes such a big difference, right? And with Elastic, because we have this history of both observability and search, a lot of customers are using Elastic as a way to validate whether the LLM is doing the right thing, right? So for example, you hear a lot of people using agent workflows for deploying their cloud infrastructure. Now, when you deploy a cloud infrastructure, how do you know whether the change it made is valid, or how do you validate that it made the right sequence of steps? Through observability. You track the signals, what it's putting out there, and you put it into Elastic, and then you can go and say, oh, these deployments were made here, these are the changes in the memory usage or CPU usage, and you're able to correlate that back. So even without using Elastic as a context store, there are places where you will have the Elastic ecosystem play a part in serving you with your AI journey.
You mentioned a little bit of observability and being able to see, to visualize your digital infrastructure. Can you talk a little bit about security? I think with AI agents, right? You have to, and I've seen the demos at this show. You have to give them the right access. Particularly if you're in a SOC, let's say, you have to give the agents access to, say, your malware alerts, your triage actions. How do you ensure that this access, or these connections or other connections to APIs, let's say, how are they not like abused, or how are they themselves being secured, right?
Yeah. The surface area of security changes very, very drastically with LLMs coming into the mix. Now, again, this is an interesting place where the problem space has not necessarily changed, but the criticality of it shifts, right? So
there are more agents now.
There are more agents now, and there are more these things over there, right? Yeah. So even if you take the conventional company structure on accessing data, right, you've always had to think about at least 3 different pieces, right? One is the actor accessing the right data, right? So you need to have access control on making sure they only access what they need to what they're doing, no more, no less, right? So this goes to granular access control on your data, the ability for you to audit who is accessing what, and all that stuff. Then there's a second part, which is if they act on the data, what actions did the actor provide, and are you able to go and audit that, right? So there is an activity log of, if you went and made a deployment or made changes to a page, I'm able to audit that and validate that they act on the third thing. And then the third thing is the actor acting maliciously, right? Did they get compromised in a way and they did something that did not? You need alerting for it. In the olden days, it would have been a human installing something on their Windows laptop, which called the system to get compromised. Yeah. Now you have to worry about an LLM downloading something and doing the same thing. So I think the concept and the area doesn't change, but what changes, to your point now, is a major exposure, right? So when you're investing in a system that is helping you do that, you want to make sure that all these 3 controls are really, really strong, right? Which is data access control for the data that your agent acts on, the ability for you to audit and deterministically see what the agent has done, and then third, audit whether the agent itself is getting compromised or the actions that it's taking over there are not kind of going over there, right? And in the case of Elastic, our security solution has been used for human actors in the same context, and we are bringing the same skill set for being able to audit agentic actors as well, right? Yeah, exactly.
And is this... it sounds like a lot of stuff you need to get right to take the next big leap. You need to get your data store in order. You need to make sure that your cybersecurity posture is
Yes.
stronger now with slightly more sort of attack surface.
Yep.
And also you need to make sure that there's ROI. It sounds like a very difficult task for the CIO.
It absolutely, it's a very formidable task to say what does, like, I think similar to other transformations, this is going to be a multi-cycle journey for many companies. The difference I would say is the barrier of you getting started is much lower, right? So I would encourage any leader listening or reading is find a bounded context in which you can make this happen, because nothing beats the experience of your team going through it, right? Because, like I said, even finding a small use case that says, simplify onboarding for my engineers who are coming in, right? Even internally, we have had product managers refine how I'm doing customer analysis and producing artifacts for definition for my engineering. Finding contained places where you can put the workflow to place and test these different bits, right? Saying, how does my data store do access? How does my model compromise? Right. So if you're putting it in a small bounded context and you know what that works like, that gives you the confidence of how it works within your business context and going broader over there. And this is where also the vendor that you're trusting all of this with makes a big difference, right? The more experience you have across all those surfaces you called out, the easier it becomes. And this is where I hope Elastic plays a bigger part as we move forward from here.
I know it's hard to make predictions on the technology that's changing, like, new models every, month or so.
You'll have to ask an agent.
Should the company realistically expect, let's say, they're investing in, maybe with Elastic or investing in other forms of AI, if I'm the CIO who has to respond to shareholders and the board, what should I tell them that their money is spent on right now? What is the kind of returns that we'll expect from, say, agentic AI in let's not say a year, let's say 6 months to 9 months? What should they expect? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I know. I influencing markets, right? So I think it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, right? Which is there are some things that are durable problems that AI accentuates, right? Which is making sure that your data access patterns are secure, making sure that your compute and data are working in efficient fashions, and then making sure that you have a deep understanding of what workflows play a part. Those become now more important than ever, right? And so before you even go and try to make promises about AI, it is important that you as a leader has a deeper understanding of those problems, right? It's similar to saying, like, hey, before I go start exercising, make sure that you understand hydration and all those things, and that you're not injured. So you got to make sure of those particular things. I think then the question becomes figuring out an area where you will demonstrate that productivity. I think one signal I definitely caution leaders on is trying to treat AI as an all or nothing problem. It's not. Right. So internally, places where we're moving really fast, like engineering workflows, you should absolutely plan to see gains over there. But even there, thinking about what the end-to-end workflow looks like to go and win is going to be the case. So if you had to ask me, I think between engineering productivity, content-heavy deterministic flows like marketing and finance, and potentially places where you have a lot more deterministic workflows like customer support are probably the place where you will see a really great immediate gain. And that's the signal we are seeing from customers as well at different levels of maturity. I think the shift you're going to see over next year is a lot more less focus on individual actions. Like today we are getting signals like number of lines of code written. I think the shift is going to become now more about what does the end impact look like.
Business ROI.
Business ROI. And I think you will see a lot more examples and questions about that over there. The pressure you can get ahead of as a leader is making sure that you have a deep understanding and bounded context for your costs, right? So this is where making sure that your data storage is efficient, making sure your connectivity with your model is efficient, and this is where relevance plays a part, sets you up well for that ROI conversation, right? So you're not now worrying about I'm spending $10 to make $1. If you're already spending a $1, then a $1 gain automatically gives you ROI, and so you have a lot more leeway to go faster. So that's the biggest consideration I would go. Pick an efficient platform to start with, and then experiment quickly to figure out what your end ROI looks like.
So last question,
Yes.
just very fast, 3 quick tips or 3 steps that you would advise your customers to take to quickly get up to speed, or at least get in the game. well, it's like getting fit, right? So,
Yeah.
it's okay, you don't have to run 10, 21 clicks
Yes.
at once, but how do you start getting there?
Yes. Now,
3 quick tips.
3 quick tips. Let's see. I think what I said, start small, start quick, right? So pick a singular data set or a singular workflow where you think AI can help and start experimenting. That is the best tip to kind of go fast over there. Second is plan for flexibility. Don't get bound or locked in into a singular end-to-end stack. Pick one that gives you the flexibility to change, because change is absolutely going to happen, right, as it goes over there. And the third is be curious, right? Like a big thing I see with a lot of leaders is they let their concerns of the technology almost lead their direction, whereas this is changing so fast that curiosity about how things work and how things change sets you up for success over there. So yeah, those will be my 3 quick tips.
Thank you very much, Ajay.
Yeah, I appreciate
Thanks.
the conversation.
Great tips.
Thank you for the time.
Thanks.
Looking forward to it.